Welcome to 3 Minute Warning, a Canadian Football League podcast. We're a member of All Sports, All Plays Network. My name is Bill Beer at PigskinPunk13 on Twitter. Joining me tonight, Dallas Bergen at CFL Fans Toronto on Twitter. And all their CFL games are available on ESPN Plus in the United States and TSN in Canada. Welcome to episode 7 of 3 Minute Warning. How you doing, Dallas?
Hey, Bill, good to see you. I'm excited to talk some CFL football. We had such a treat this last week, being Canadian Thanksgiving up here. We had a doubleheader on Monday, three games that went down to the final play, I think, and it's been a great weekend. So yeah,
It was a
lots
great
to.
weekend. A lot of games. Some teams, as we mentioned this, previous episode, they played twice, which was really interesting when we get to our fantasy studs and duds. So, let's head into some of the news we have here. And the first one up here, we have the Argos are rumored to be shopping Nick Arbuckle from Three Down Nation, Justin Dunk. So, what do you think about that? Argos going to be shopping their quarterback that they brought in to match up with the head coach. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much credibility to give this, and yet coming from Justin Dunk, it's something that you want to pay attention to. I think any pundit and media personality, they know that unsubstantiated rumors can really sink your credibility. So this one is interesting. Maybe it's not so much the Toronto Argonauts shopping Nick Arbuckle as much as many teams are making inquiries or offers. You have to. I'm not sure. This doesn't feel right to me. I think all indications so far this season have been that Nick Arbuckle and McLeod Bethel Thompson are totally team first guys, and obviously they are competitors. They both want to be starters, but it has seemed apparent that the chemistry between them, the chemistry in the locker room, the way the coaches have handled it, has been a really healthy way of doing this. And I think the Toronto Argonauts can have a huge competitive advantage here. Now, it's always said that having a quarterback controversy is problematic with the team and can spell disaster and division and sow discord and all of this. But these are two quality starting quarterbacks. And if you have the right culture on a team, the right leadership, the right coaches that create that atmosphere, the right personalities among those quarterbacks, then suddenly having two starting caliber quarterbacks becomes a huge luxury and a huge boon that can be super impactful down the stretch and into the playoffs. I remember a team knocking off the 16-2 divisional champs on a 9-9 season because they had two starting quarterbacks. CFL fans know I'm talking about the 1989 Saskatchewan Roughriders, who beat Edmonton with Tom Burgess in the West Final, and then went on to win the Grey Cup in Toronto, the newly opened Sky Dome, with Kent Austin at quarterback. And I think the Toronto Argonauts could do something very similar with Nick Arbuckle and McLeod Bethel Thompson. So we'll see for this where this one goes. It's said that everything has its price. I'm not sure you ever want to send a quarterback and help out a divisional rival. So I think that price would be incredibly high, and yet I suppose anything is possible.
And I don't think you want to send, a quarterback in his mid to late 20s to a rival or to somebody else and just go with a 30-some-year-old quarterback. But I think what they have going on now is working pretty well. We don't have any big egos that we've heard of. And, I mean, it seems to be working. I don't know I assume that they're going to roll with McLeod Bethel Thompson again. I mean, at this point, do we have any reason besides injury or not playing well to bring back Nick Arbuckle, who apparently isn't 100% healthy? Right now, we don't have that reason. So I think they're going to just roll with him until they have a reason not to. And you never know as the season goes on, Um, he's been taking some hard hits. You never know what will happen. And two quarterbacks is definitely an advantage. That's for sure.
Yeah, I
So,
think the length of the leash can be shortened or lengthened. So certainly, I think absolutely McLeod gets the next start, I would
mhm,
assume. And yet, again, that luxury is if your quarterback is struggling, is that loyalty to, and it's not disloyalty to pull your quarterback if he isn't
no,
playing well. Again,
no,
if you have that healthy culture in the room and you get a fresh guy in there who maybe has a different read on the game and give the team an injection of energy and something different, maybe they can spark something. But yeah, absolutely. I think McLeod's your guy right now.
mhm,
And I don't want to belabor the fact that McLeod Bethel Thompson has had ample opportunity to seize this starting job prior to this season. And so the fan chatter right now is full of strong opinions about what the Toronto Argonauts should be doing at a time when you would never believe their record was so good, given the amount of maybe conflict between some fans. But really, they have a luxury right now with these two quarterbacks, and I think the team should use that to their competitive advantage.
absolutely. I agree. They, uh, they're in good shape as we go on. We'll get to the games here in a bit. Now we go to a different situation with the Edmonton Elks, and Trevor Harris was announced he's going to be benched, and they're going to roll with two other quarterbacks. I guess the rest of the season. I don't know. They seem to be in disarray. They have talent on that team, but it just doesn't seem like it's coming together.
Very well said. They do. They have a lot of talent, and what a mess there. It seems like they're already into next year territory that's made worse by Calgary's two consecutive wins the last 2 weeks. But it makes me wonder if Jamie Elizondo, head coach, has been given job security for next season because they're already having a look to quarterbacks looking towards the future. I'm not sure this is a win now strategy. Trevor Harris didn't become a terrible quarterback overnight. He's been one of the best, and maybe he's struggled a little bit this year, but there is something strange going on here. And that Brock Sunderland and Jamie Elizondo both are on the hot seat right now. These are those times when a general manager will either tie himself to the cart of his head coach or throw his head coach under the bus to take the fall. And I'm wondering if maybe Brock Sunderland has tied himself to Jamie Elizondo and given him opportunity to take a look at the other quarterbacks and try and turn this thing around, not for this year, but for the future.
Well, it's interesting because we had another news item with the Elks, and we kind of overlooked this. I guess it was about a week and a half ago that the Elks, radio analyst Eddie Steele, former player, was fired from the radio for making, comments on another radio show about, the general manager and the direction that the Elks were going in, and they just fired him. I don't know if I've ever heard of somebody getting, on the radio getting fired for being critical of their team, but here I have a message for, the general manager of the Elks, and here it is. Are you ready?
Somewhere along the line, you change. You stop being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you.
Yeah, I thought that was a perfect message for the Edmonton Elks. It seemed to be at disarray, throwing the towel in on the season. Which what else can you say? You know, they didn't look like they throwing the towel in. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to explain what's happening there, and maybe they're not. We've both said that, throwing the towel and looking at next season. Maybe they really believe that some of this gives them the best chance to win, but I don't know what's up there. If Trevor Harris is truly healthy, this is a head scratcher.
Yeah,
there are signs on the way into Edmonton. Edmonton is known as the city of champions, and now the early 80s are a long time ago. But
absolutely.
But the Edmonton football team and the Edmonton Oilers in the NHL both won 5 championships in a row. And there is a lot of pride in that city for their sports teams. Viewing the banter among Edmonton Elks fans right now, I'm feeling for them. I'm feeling sorry for that fan base who are feeling shame and anger and upset at not just a poor on-field product, but what appears to be larger systemic issues within the organization. And you have to wonder what's going to happen there through the rest of this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. They definitely didn't look good this past week. So another bit of news, and it's not good news because he's one of the good things that has happened to the CFL this season, and one of the truly good guys, Vernon Adams Jr., was moved to the 6-game injured list. And if you saw the game, you saw the injury happen where he sort of, went to dive and he got his arm pinned underneath his body. And he's a playmaker in this league. He's fun to watch. There's been several games this year. I mean, he's a gunslinger. It's disappointing that he got injured, and I hope he's able to get back this season to get back on the field because he's a player that the CFL needs to have.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's really unfortunate to see, and all of the injuries across the league and the key players. Maybe it's doing the podcasting and stuff this year too. I just feel like a closer connection to these players in the CFL and more. It's sad to see Vernon Adams go down like this after, he's battled through injury and through just a tough start to the season all year, suffering. He had that pectoral or rib injury earlier on, and then the ankle injury, and just trying to get rolling. And now this one looks maybe pretty serious, likely either the season or maybe there's a hope for the playoffs if they can make the playoffs. So, and I guess looking to the bright spots, it was nice to see Matt Schiltz drive for a winning drive at the end of that game.
Oh yeah.
So
it was a guy sitting on the sideline the whole game and comes in and it looks like he's been starting the whole game. So that was kind of exciting.
I didn't mean to spin a positive on a player injury.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's one of those things. So it gives another guy an opportunity to step up, and they could have 2 quarterbacks. You never know. You never know. See what happens. So last bit of news, we have Jake Meyer in the COVID protocol. He tested positive. So Bo Levi Mitchell better not get injured here. And he's been having his ups and downs, but everything we've seen from Jake Meyer, he's looked pretty decent this year.
For sure. Yeah. Like Schiltz, we saw Jake Meyer come in and pass for almost 1,000 yards in 3 games and engineer winning drives. It's great to see these young quarterbacks come in and show maybe that there's a future there. Who the big names among quarterbacks in the future of this league are. But yeah, unfortunate news to hear that he did test positive, because I think players can be under COVID protocol and
Mhm.
maybe they just had an exposure risk. They broke not quarantine, but player protocols for COVID.
Right.
That puts them in that for a few days. But this is a positive test, so we wish him a healthy return. But that is unfortunate for the Stampeders, because I read today that's 10 days, I think, that he will be out. So you're absolutely right. Bo Levi Mitchell better stay healthy, and
Mhm.
Michael O'Connor will come in the backup role, I assume, for the Stamps this week.
Yeah, you would think so. So let's go ahead and we're going to head to our games this week, our Week 10 games. And the first one was on a Wednesday, and you had Ottawa traveling to Toronto. And Toronto ended up winning this game 35-16. And I tell you, as a Toronto fan watching this game, it was ugly on offense. It was ugly on offense. The defense, the special teams, we had a couple defensive scores there, a blocked punt, and the way the defense played, especially in that second half, they really did a number on Ottawa. So after this game, I felt good that they had the win, but I wasn't. The offense kind of disappointed me a little. What did you feel about this game?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting to see Toronto come up with a big win, and they did score a lot of points, but it wasn't all offensive production. I think they got touchdowns in all three phases of the game, right?
Yep.
But yeah, definitely lots of positives too, though. I mean, it is a win against the lowly Ottawa Red Blacks, but there were facets of Toronto's game that were pretty exciting to watch. The second half adjustments by the defense really rattled Caleb Evans. Caleb Evans had a 3-touchdown week the week before. This week became a 3-interception week, as Chris Jones brought lots of heat and put pressure on the young quarterback. I guess I'll look more to the defensive success rather than the offensive woes. But I mean, what a game for the front seven, for Chris Edwards. They really took it to Ottawa, and it was convincing by the end, but it was kind of slow to get going.
And Caleb Evans,
Huge
this was his second start, and he had another 300-yard game, 3 interceptions, but a young guy, you can tell he has some talent. He's actually pretty exciting to watch. I mean, running the ball, he had 54 yards rushing in this game, I believe. Ottawa doesn't have a running game at all. They're another one of those teams that, they become one-dimensional after they try running it. Their quarterback is their rushing yards. And, the second half, Toronto just, okay, we're going to just rush the passer. We're going to blitz and everything else. And it ended up like you would have thought it would end up with a rookie quarterback being rushed by a decent defense and pretty good defensive coordinator, or what is it, a defensive consultant, you would say.
Yeah, is
but
that
he's the
still
defensive.
coordinator's not official yet? That's
Yeah.
interesting, but yeah.
Consultant. So yeah, this was exciting game, especially if you're a Toronto Argonauts fan. So you have any final thoughts on this particular game?
Oh yeah, no, I don't think anything else to add there. I mean, I found
Okay.
the game from Chris Edwards to be really interesting. Chris Edwards is a hothead. I think it's fine to say it. I mean, I was at an Argos practice a couple weeks ago where he was so riled up. He had the whole team and management coming over and chatting with him on the sideline. So this is a guy who is a fiery competitor. And we've seen at times, sometimes, takes a ill thought penalty and hurts his team. And someone who I compare an awful lot to Nick Marshall. I see so much of Nick Marshall in Saskatchewan doing the same kind of thing, where these are guys with tons of talent, tons of swagger. They talk and then they try to walk the talk that they talk. And Chris Edwards did it this game. I mean, he had a huge game and he read that pick six, just jumped on it. And so, yeah, what a great performance. But it was really interesting to reflect on that, because there have been times when, I think he's hurt his team in ways, and he definitely stepped up and showed his value there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. It played a heck of a game. So our next game here was the Friday night game, and it was Edmonton heading into Winnipeg. And I don't know how much time we want to spend on this game. It was Winnipeg 30, Edmonton 3. Basically, Edmonton couldn't do anything in this game. Trevor Harris, which looks like his last start this season unless something changes. Zach Caleros, he had 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He keeps on chugging. I mean, he doesn't make huge mistakes a lot. And if he does, the defense is right there to pick him up. But Andrew Harris had 24 carries for 150 yards. I mean, this Elks team, as we've been saying, they're just in a disarray right now. And I don't know. They don't look like they're going to win another game this season. I mean, they play if they play Winnipeg again this week. Is that right?
Yeah. I
Yep.
think so.
Yep. It's in
That's
Edmonton.
right.
So any thoughts about this particular game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my takeaways from this were I was wrong on 2 counts. Winnipeg isn't that good and Edmonton isn't that bad. Both of those statements are false. There isn't much to talk about, because this was the quintessential Winnipeg Blue Bombers game. You have Dembski and Harris and Big Hill and Jeff Coat and Jefferson and Zach Caleros doing their thing. And, Caleros did come off that incredible passing game the week before. This was just your kind of, try not to use the game manager term, but for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, as the quarterback of that team, you just need to not turn the ball over and drive for those scores when you can. And the defense is going to do the job. The defense won this game all by themselves. So we'd be talking about how few points the Winnipeg defense gives up in the fourth quarter, as that's the one we're talking about every week. And yet that doesn't even do service to what the defense was able to do this game, holding Edmonton to just 3 points. So
yeah, and we had Kenny Lawler had been suspended for this game. You didn't feel? I mean, Nick Dembski stepped up and had a decent game. They didn't miss a beat, basically.
Yeah, a huge game from Dembski. And I mean, all of them, Harrison, all the 4 named guys. But man, Nick Dembski is a player. To have 2 ratio breaking Canadian players on your roster like that, who are the elite stars. I mean, Dembski maybe isn't quite a top 3 receiver, although he's making a case for it lately. But Andrew Harris being definitely top 3 running back in the league. That is a well-constructed, well-coached team. I'm waiting to see who is going to have the answer for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Yeah, we will see. As I said, I don't think it'll be this week unless Edmonton has something up their sleeve and they actually show up. So we will see. We will see. So our next game was Calgary headed in Saskatchewan, which was a rubber match of the previous week games, and it was Calgary 22, Saskatchewan 19. And this was post Cody Fajaro having his little meltdown, and then he has an apology, which really felt like a heartfelt apology. It felt genuine. It wasn't just one of these people that go out there and just say sorry. He really went and explained himself. He didn't really even need to do that, but I think it showed a lot about his character that he actually did that.
For sure, and there was no doubt. I mean, that's why this came as such a surprise, because I think everybody knows what a great character and person Cody Fajardo is, and I think he needed to rehabilitate that a little bit with the apology, but it absolutely was sincere and heartfelt, and he said what he said. He was accountable for it, gave credit back to the guys whom he had spoken a little bit poorly of the week before. And I mean, Cody Fajardo is a leader. He's the leader of that team, and I'm sure everybody respects him every bit as much as they did before, and maybe even more.
Yeah,
Hope he's able to improve his game, though. This was a test for Saskatchewan, with Cody Fajardo not having ever beaten the Calgary Stampeders, and likewise with Craig Dickinson as head coach beating his brother Dave. Those Riders were trying to get that first win for those two. And yeah, just didn't quite happen. Tight game. I think the quarterback play by both quarterbacks was just okay. It was just average. Neither of them lit it up. But one of the difference was Calgary. You've been saying it all season, I think. Like, why don't they run the ball with Kadeem Carey? He's so good. Finally, Kadeem Carey gets 20 plus carries, and the Riders couldn't stop him. He carried Calgary to much of that win. And all of a sudden, Calgary looks like a pretty good football team. And there's a lot of concern in Saskatchewan right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Calgary at one point looked like they were done. Bo Levi Mitchell was on the 6-game injury list, and they had been losing, and it just looked like they were done. Now coming in this game, the first play of the game was a long touchdown. I'm like, uh-oh, is Bo back? Is this going to be like a shootout? But I don't know. As you said, Kadeem Carey, they got him going 100 yards, 20 carries. Bo Levi was okay. I mean, he had 2 interceptions. We go to Saskatchewan. They only ran the ball 10 times with a running back besides Cody Fajardo scrambling. And, I think, his little rant that he had at the end of the last game, he isn't totally wrong about it all with his receivers. Talk about these 50-50 balls, and some of the receivers are just not making plays. I agree that some of the passes are not on target all the time, but some of his passes, you pass for a yard or two, and then they can't break any tackles. So I don't know what the answer is for them. Karen Moore still had, 6 catches for 73 yards, but nobody else seemed to step up, and they're going to get a few receivers. Duke Williams is coming. I don't know if this week he's going to be active, but it's interesting because they got to stop the bleeding here. It's time to set up and win a game here. So I think they're off this coming week.
They are on the bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if that helps them. There's a 50-50 ball as to who's at fault between Cody and his receivers. I mean, Cody Fajardo hasn't been exceptionally accurate. And his receivers, I think it would be, and I don't mean this as a disrespect to them, but I think it's the receiving core right now for the Saskatchewan Roughriders is not an elite receiving core. We have Kyron Moore and Keon Schaefer-Baker as the number 1 and 2 receivers. Of course, Evans is hurt right now, and we're waiting for Daquille Williams to make his debut. But Kyron Moore is a reliable target on the quick slant and the 9-yard out and that. I mean, he is sure-handed. His catch rate is really high. But look, we're comparing right now Kyron Moore and Keon Schaefer-Baker. What an amazing surprise he has been. But compared to Walker and Ellingson, or Burnham and formerly Whitehead, or Rogers and Daniels, or Dembski and Lawler and Darvin Adams, or whoever. The Saskatchewan Roughriders need a better duo of receivers ahead of those two very good receivers in Kyron Moore and Ken Schaefer-Baker. And so maybe the return of Evans and Williams' debut is going to help there. And you know what? I can't let the offensive line off the hook either, because they did not play a very good game against Calgary at all. And that hurts quarterbacks and receivers and the running game all. So there, like I said, there are concerns in Saskatchewan right now. And suddenly Calgary looks really good. That linebacker trio, Sankey and Thurman and Brandon Dozier, had a heck of a game against the Riders. They were all over the field making plays.
Absolutely. They were, Thurman had that forced fumble, and, for Bo not playing the best, they look good. I mean, and this game is almost identical as in score to the previous game the previous week. I mean, it's only off by a few points here and there. It's like the same sort of thing. They can't get over that hump of beating Calgary, so it'll be interesting going forward to see what they're able to do, get those two receivers back. And I don't know if it's protection or play calling or what it is exactly, but definitely their protection needs to be better. Because you're playing some powerhouses on defense here in your division, Winnipeg and Winnipeg. They're like, I don't know who could beat them in their house. I don't know any team right now except Toronto did it one time. I don't know who can come and beat them right now. They just look so awesome in all phases. Maybe not the kicking game, but everywhere else they look pretty good. So,
yep.
So we go to Thanksgiving Monday, and we got Ottawa and Montreal. And Montreal ended up winning this last minute 20-16. And it was an entertaining game. I don't know what to say about Ottawa. I think they have some potential. Their quarterback struggled a little bit, but they just need some more talent. They don't have a running game. As I said before, they just need more talent on that team. And I don't know if, they keep losing, if they'll keep the coach around for next season or they'll go in a different direction. But it was an entertaining game. I did enjoy this one. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, admittedly, I was a little busy with family, so I listened to this game rather than watching it on TV. But what a treat to be able to listen to Voice of the Argos, Mike Hogan, and Natea J calling the game on TSN 1050. It had been a long time since I listened to a CFL broadcast on radio, and forgot how much I enjoyed it to try and conceive of the play and the imagination in the theater of the mind. And then to recognize what a great job those broadcasters do when you have to give a much more clear visual picture of what's happening on the field. And Mike Hogan does such a great job. So, yeah, listen to that one. But again, we were crushed at Vernon Adams' injury, seeing him go down. Exciting to see Schiltz drive for that winning score. And I think that at a closing drive that really made a statement with 3 completions and a really nice run for 17 yards. I don't think anybody was maybe expecting, and just put his nose in there to get his team closer to the end zone, allowing Cameron Artis-Payne to finish.
Yes, and
there's a great bright spot for Montreal. William Stanback had full practice today, so maybe don't pick Artis-Payne for fantasy this week. We'll watch the practice reports on Stanback this week, but he went 121 yards on 22 carries. I made a quick last-minute fantasy sub and took him and was able to take the Als defense too, because I hadn't picked a defense because William Stanback was so expensive. That worked out okay, but great game for Cameron Artis-Payne. So that was exciting to see as
Yes,
well.
I was excited to see this because as soon as I saw, I think we texted back and forth, because I wanted to know who was starting the depth charts sort of thing, and I saw Cameron Artis-Payne, and it's like XFL, Dallas Renegades, which I followed pretty well when it was out last year. And I was like, Carolina Panther. I remember him in both places. And I was kind of excited that he was getting this opportunity. And did he take advantage of this opportunity or what? He really showed that, he deserves to be on this team. And, going into, you never know what injuries will happen and anything. But he looked, and I know this is only one game, but he looked pretty solid for a CFL running back.
Oh, he sure did. It was a great debut. And on the other side of the ball too, we've talked about Ottawa not having a running game, and they haven't all year. But DeLance Turner made his debut and looked pretty decent as well. I think what do you have 70 yards on 10 carries or something like that. But not. That's a positive there that they look to running the ball and giving a new back an opportunity in the backfield, because Timothy Flanders was a healthy scratch for that game.
Well, and they had a couple names in there that hadn't carried the ball. I mean, you have Lance Turner. We had Terrion Christian. Sorry, I probably butchered that name. But yeah, he had a carry, but they needed.
That's backup quarterback Taryn Christian, who we might see some of in the coming weeks.
Oh yeah. But it'll be interesting. It's it's definitely, you had Nate Bahar was the leading receiver. I believe he was like a healthy scratch a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and they elected to make Kenny Stafford their healthy scratch this week, which was a bit of a head scratcher. But I guess Ottawa is evaluating talent and looking to the future. And so they elected not to start a CFL veteran receiver who probably could help them at this point, but it's allowing them to get a look at some other players and get some more reps for some other guys. I think we've seen Caleb Evans, still very exciting quarterback who's showing some really great things, but a bit of a regression over the 3 games, with each week getting a little tougher. This game, he threw for just 125 yards. So last week it was 300 plus, but with the 3 interceptions, the previous week 3 touchdowns at 300 yards. And so I wonder if we might see Taryn Christian come in, maybe not get a start, but get an opportunity to play maybe next game. And Devlin Duck Hodges is still on the practice roster as well, awaiting an opportunity. So I think it's possible we see 2 more quarterbacks with playtime in Ottawa in the coming weeks, as I think they can consider this year a write-off. And Calgary's 2 wins don't help their cause either as well, because there could be just 2 teams from the East going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So our final game of the weekend, the Thanksgiving Monday, was Toronto going into Hamilton, and Toronto ended up winning this on a last-second field goal, 24-23. And I tell you, going into this game, I wasn't super. I was feeling a little down about Toronto's offense, because it's like, okay, if you couldn't do much in the game versus Ottawa, we're going into Hamilton here. You're gonna have a rough time, and that's what I saw in the first half. I saw their offense struggle, but part of the reason that they struggled is so many of these penalties. They have a good play, there's a penalty, puts them in the hole, and then they're 2 and out. They had a lot of penalties like that, especially in the first half, until they got into that third quarter. And then I don't know what, a switch was flipped or something. And then, Bethel Thompson was on it. He was spreading it out to everybody. There was, one catch to DeVaris Daniels, like a circus-like catch. That was amazing. Curly Gittens Jr. had some plays. Is just they were on it, and if I would have told you at the beginning of the game, okay, our leading rusher is going to be DJ Foster because White is inactive with an injury, and he's going to have 7 carries for 7 yards, you would say, yeah, they're not going to win. They're definitely not going to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting game, that first half, and I got home for the second half, but the first half sounded bad. I mean, McLeod, Bethel Thompson ended up throwing for 388 yards. I think over 300 of that was in the second half. So it was just a terrible start for the Toronto Argonauts. And then again, second game in a row that they've had a big third quarter, and then into the fourth, into this one as well, and we're able to gut out a win in Hamilton. That is huge. And McLeod, Bethel Thompson able to solidify himself for now in that starting role with great leadership and a gutsy win, turning things around after that rough start the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a fun second half, I do have to say. As soon as I think it was like around 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and they started to make plays. There was that one play where he threw an interception, and there wasn't a penalty, and they challenged that, which was definitely a good challenge because it was helmet to his chin basically, and that kept the drive going. And yeah, it was a fun game. If you're a Toronto fan, if you're a Hamilton fan, I don't know, because they didn't play terrible on offense. I mean, they moved the ball. At times they settled for a field goal. There was that one play there in the fourth quarter where they scored a touchdown that, the Toronto's defensive backs looked like they misplayed it a little bit. They were in this game to the very end, and I don't know. They're 2 games behind Toronto. I don't know what they do differently from this point. I know Dane Evans, hopefully they'll get him back, and I think he's definitely the starter, but it'll be interesting to see where they go.
Yeah, interesting. Hamilton wasn't able to generate more points in that game because Jeremiah Masoli had a pretty solid game, a more efficient game than McLeod, Bethel Thompson. Masoli was 24 of 33, so 72.7% completion percentage, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns. And yet, yeah, they couldn't come out on top of this one. I think part of this is that Toronto is a good football team that continues to get better. And I think that's the thing that Argonauts fans can be really excited about right now. The emergence of Chandler Worthy as a weapon on offense.
Oh, absolutely.
Curly Gittens going over 100 yards on this game. He was the go-to receiver in this game. DeVaris Daniels made the play of the game and one of the catches of the year, I think, at the CFL for that touchdown, but I think he only had 2 catches on the night. And so Curly Gittens Jr. is stepping up big time. And so there's lots to be excited about for Argos fans right now. Dexter McCoyle had 12 tackles, a sack that was almost a safety, a knockdown, like just unreal game. So a lot of great things from the Argonauts happening. Chandler Worthy almost had 2 touchdowns, one that he just couldn't hang on to. Jamar Roll came and knocked it out of his hands in the end zone, but another great game for him. So,
yeah, absolutely. It was a fun game. It was a fun game. I'm looking forward to. I mean, Toronto has it seems like they've had several bye weeks. I know the one game was pushed, and moved back, but it'll be interesting from this point out. I'm excited as a Toronto fan. I'm excited going forward. So
You're gonna have to come up for a game sometime, Bill. You could drive up in what, 8 hours, 8 or 9, maybe.
yeah, 8 hours.
They gotta do that. That would have been a
And
good one to
actually,
be at. There's
you
nothing
know,
better than a win in the hammer on the final play.
we have some property in northern PA. It's like close to the New York state line, so it's really only 2 hours from where we own property and have a camp. So
Hey, right on.
so
Well,
yeah.
look forward to meeting you in person
Yeah,
and
that would be
having you up
awesome.
for a game sometime. Maybe
Yes.
maybe it's the playoffs this year, but we'll see.
Absolutely. So that's all our games from week 10. We're going to head into the week 11 preview. And our first game is Friday night. And actually, from here on out, it's Friday night and Saturday games. There are no Wednesday games, Thursday games until we get to the playoffs. And then we have Sundays and that sort of thing. So our first game Friday night is Winnipeg at Edmonton. And can you convince me to have a reason to watch this game?
Oh, we got to watch every game.
I know we got to watch every game. How about
There's
for
a
your
1
average
in a
fan?
1,000 chance you might see the Winnipeg Blue Bombers lose. No, again, hey, Edmonton has lots of talent. You never know. You never know. It happens. It happens all the time. The team that's hasn't lost on the year gets beat by one of the lousiest teams in the league. I've seen it many times, so you never know. I'm always interested in seeing new quarterbacks. Not that Taylor Cornelius is that new after we've seen him in a few games already, but I really love the opportunity to see new guys under center. So that would be one of the things that I would find interesting in that matchup. But yeah, who's gonna have an answer for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
Yeah, unless we get a shock of the season, I guess anything's possible. Definitely anything's possible. So we head to Saturday night, and we got Montreal at Ottawa, the rubber match of the previous week. So that'll be another interesting game. No Vernon Adams Jr. We'll see what Schultz is able to do. And I'm not sure who the quarterback was going to be. We were just talking about, hey, it may be, any one of these three guys. And, they had new running backs play, and they might be just, looking at the talent on the roster to see what they got, because they're not going to make the play. Being in the Eastern Division, they're not going to make a playoffs unless they would go somehow on a run, but I don't even see that happening. So,
yeah, I don't think so. I imagine you would see Caleb Evans get the start, but unless he is on fire, maybe you see Taryn Christian come in. They were kind of 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, where that game where one of them was to start. I think through that week of practice, they were pretty neck and neck for that role. And actually, Paul Lapalisse did say that he expected you would see both of them play that game. And then Caleb Evans had such a great outing that he just stayed in the game. So you got to believe that they're interested in having a look at the other two quarterbacks they have as well. So maybe we'll see it because they're way ahead or way behind or neither.
No, should be a good game. And then our next game on Saturday night, second part of that doubleheader, is Calgary at BC. The BC Lions come back after a bye week, and that should be an interesting game,
Who would you pick in that one?
I think I'm going to go with BC, but Calgary, if they lean on their running game a little bit and Bo Levi Mitchell doesn't throw too many interceptions, they might be able to win that game, because BC is another team. They lost their Lucky Whitehead for I don't know how many games, and lack of running game unless they magically pull something out of the hat, I don't know if they'll be able to run the ball, because Calgary is been playing pretty well on defense too. It's not like they've been giving up tons of yardage and that sort of thing. So that's going to be an interesting game, but I don't put anything. BC has definitely, it wouldn't surprise me if they came out and dominated this game either. So it'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I asked you because I'm not sure. That one seems like a bit of a pick 'em. Maybe I'm giving Calgary a lot of credit because I did think Saskatchewan was pretty good, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think that one's going to be a great game. That's the game of the week for sure. I'm not sure. I think everyone would agree, but that should be a good one out in BC.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so that is week 11. We're going to head to our fantasy studs and fantasy duds. And what I did this week is, we had a couple teams playing double games, and in fantasy, you got credit for both games, which I had never seen this ever. I mean, usually playing fantasy in the NFL. So I said, I definitely have to get some Toronto Argonauts on my roster. So I had DJ Foster, who had 34.2 fantasy points. He was only 5,100. And then I put on Chandler Worthy. And after the first game, he didn't do super hot, but he still ended up with 27.4, and he was 5,400.
And then he gets those return yards, right? So those guys, and especially kickoff returns, because that's a lot of yardage when you return kickoffs. Always something to think about.
Yep, absolutely. And Toronto's defense, 33 points. I went with them. And I threw in some Nick Dembski. He got me 19.3 points.
Good pick.
My quarterback was my dud because I had Zach Collaros, but he only had 10.3 fantasy points, I think around 200 yards, and he did have a turnover. So I scored the most points, but I think a lot of people, especially in our fantasy league that we have with the 3-minute warning fantasy group, everybody scored, I believe, over 100 points easily. Mm-hmm. And I think my highest was like 80 something before. So how did you do this week?
Yeah, I went all in on the two games by Ottawa and Toronto, and that really paid off. This was a pretty solid week for me at 138.6 points. And yet, like, some of these you don't think they were the greatest of picks, but I guess when they got two games to produce in. So I had Caleb Evans as my quarterback, who was good for 22.2. I also had DJ Foster, and in spite of a terrible second game, he had a great first game. So that was good for 34 plus. At the last minute subbed in the Alouettes defense, which was not great, just an 8-point effort from them. But I also had Cameron Artis-Payne, which was 24.9, going over 100 yards and with a touchdown. Chandler Worthy also 27.4. Damien Jean-Pierre at 17.5. And then with my little bit of money left, I had Jalen Tolliver from the Elks, who only had 3 catches for 14 yards, but all in all, not a bad week, but a strange week. It just felt weird to do well on a week that was so odd with those 5 games and 2 teams playing twice. So, hey, let's do Friday and Saturday for the rest of the year. We'll make it easy on podcasters who like to podcast on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, and people playing fantasy who don't like things to be confusing.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I mean, if I had, for this coming week, I haven't picked my team yet, but if I had, thoughts of who would have want to get in there, I'd want to get in some Winnipeg because they're going to be scoring some points. The other 2 games, I'm like all over the place. I don't know who exactly. I mean, no Vernon Adams Jr. and we'll see. Edmonton. Stay away from Edmonton. I mean,
Mhm.
I
Except maybe
wouldn't.
Terry Williams is a good pick if he's their returner, and
Mhm.
maybe he gets some good yardage
Yeah,
at
it's
a
hard to
very
say.
cheap price. But it's true, I probably wouldn't be touching any of those Edmonton Elks this week. This might be one of those weeks where you go, well, you could do it two ways. You can go thrifty on the quarterback. Maybe you look to match Schultz or something, and then get your Brian Burnham or someone who's bound to have a big game. Or you could go the other way and look to Michael Riley as your quarterback at
Mhm.
11,500, because I think there are a lot of lower priced receivers available this week that could get lots of action, right? So you've got Lucky Whitehead out in BC,
Mhm.
maybe Keon Hatcher, Javon Katoy. Those guys are probably like 4,000 in that range. Hatcher's probably even less. Those could be good picks there as well.
The thing I struggle with, you spend the most money on your big name players, and then you have these lower tier players, and it's like, okay, which one of these guys are going to step up and have a good week? It's almost like the lottery to me, because some of these guys I don't even recognize their name. I've seen that they had stats before, but it's like, okay, who should I pick here? And I've been doing that strategy of taking one running back and leaving the other running back spot empty and just going all out on receivers and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah, lots of different ways you can play it. Looking down the list to those 2,500 players, I guess one of the things I think about is it's almost always better to take either a return specialist at 2,500 or a starting running back like tailback who's having his first start and has no CFL stats over
right.
an experienced fullback who gets a couple touches every game, but is probably only good for 3 carries for 15 yards or something, 10 yards or something like that.
Uh,
But yeah, those anytime. I mean, I love to look at the depth charts every week
mhm.
and look for an unknown starter, somebody like Artis Payne who's in there, and
Oh,
like, oh,
right.
who is that? And then because they're going to be 2,500 if they've never played a game, and
Exactly. Yeah, that's
particularly
that's a
if it's
good.
at a feature position like running back, that might be a good pick. So actually, Delance Turner, might be 2,500 or 3,000 this coming week. That might not be a bad pick to try and squeeze in a second running back.
No, absolutely. And that's what I did at the beginning of the season. Josh Huff. He started the season, he had some very good games, and he wasn't very expensive. I think they have him up to 6,900. But at the beginning of the year, he was like down there a little bit, and they had some injuries, and he stepped up. Darvin Adams, at the beginning when he was injured for the first couple games, when he came back, he was super expensive, and now he's down here at 6,000. He's kind of been
Mhm.
quiet lately.
Yeah, I mean,
I
he's
mean,
kind of their third, maybe even fourth guy now. It's really strange. You always say you can't lose your job to injury, but receiver quarterback chemistry is a thing. And I mean, with Lawler and Dembski, Zach's built rapport with them and chemistry, and of course he played with Adams last year, but
yep.
those guys are having a hot year.
No. No, I'm looking forward to, the end of the season here in the playoffs, just to see what it feels like, see what the CFL playoffs feels like, my first Grey Cup. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it, and we'll be here to talk about it, that's for sure.
Yeah,
So,
should be a great end of this season, as there are a lot of really great races shaping up for the playoffs.
mhm,
So yeah,
absolutely.
it'll be great to watch the games. I want to remind everybody all the CFL games are on ESPN Plus in the United States and TSN in Canada. You can watch them around the world as well. So I want to thank you for listening to 3 Minute Warning tonight. This is a Canadian Football League podcast with myself, Dallas Bergen. You can find me on Twitter at CFL Fans Toronto. And my partner here is Bill Beer at Pigskin Punk 13. We're always up for chatter on Twitter, so hit us up. Let us know your thoughts on the CFL, and look up 3-minute warning on both CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em, and you can join in our leagues and join in the fun there as well.
Absolutely. So we will see you later.